Hello, everybody. Uh, Welcome back to a new quarter. Seems like we just finished the last quarter, but time flies, right? So now we're on to a new class. Hopefully you'll like this class. Introduction to religions from around the world. Hopefully I can make this interesting and fun for you. I really like the book. It's a really cool book, basic information, but very thorough. And that's how I'll present this stuff to you, okay? And I'm gonna start with, you know how I usually start in the very first page. No matter how short, at least I have one question for you. But the first two pages are an intro, so I'm not gonna ask any questions on those. And then after that, the pages that follow will have questions, you know, maybe at least two each per page, okay? All right, so let me go through the typical procedure, okay? Okay. Start, oh, let me minimize myself. Okay, start the slideshow. And then from the beginning. Okay, went a little too far. No problem. Let me just backspace. Previous. Here we go. Introduction to the world's religions. And this is scheduled for October the 4th, 2021. Okay, October the 4th, 2021. So here's going to go to the introduction. So for this first couple pages, I'm not going to stop and ask questions, but then after that, I'm going to have to do that immediately, okay? So just letting you know, all right? Introduction. Okay, this book explains religions. Therefore, it is suited for inquirers. Inquirers are people who ask questions, who want to know or inquire about things, who are religious, anti-religious, or non-religious. So basically, what that's saying, it's for everyone, right? If you're a religious person and you're curious about other religions, this book is for you. If you're anti-religious, which is against, you know, all religions, then this book is for you. Or if you're non-religious, which is meaning like you really don't care and you don't have a religion, but maybe you're curious, then this book is also for you. So basically what I'm saying here is it's just not for one person. Or some people will see a class, this class, for example, and it says Introduction to the World's Religions, and they say, oh my God, this is for a Catholic or a Jewish person or a Muslim. You know, this is for religious folks. I have no business, you know. That's not the case. You could be anti-religious or non-religious. So continuing, but it is also right for the undecided, agnostic explorer. Again, you're not decided, maybe yes, maybe no. Agnostic, you don't believe in anything really. You just kind of go along. Maybe you believe in McDonald's Big Mac, I don't know, but you really don't believe in a supreme being or higher power. And you have intellectual curiosity, which has brought you or him to raise deeper questions about his place or your place in the world. And this happens for regular folks. You know, I must admit, I don't care what your religion is. But most people, you get a religion because you're following in the footsteps of your parents, you know, and that's usually how people start. So and we're getting an increasing number of that, people who don't have religions raise up kids. It doesn't mean that when the kids are now young adults or older, they just have a curiosity like, what about that religious stuff? Is that good or bad? You know, my parents didn't raise me with any type of religion, but I have an intellectual curiosity and I have deeper questions because some people go along in life and like I said, I mean, you might think it's silly, but they just go along. Like I have a friend, he doesn't believe in anything. And the most important thing for him, should I say, don't laugh, but the two most important things in his life are cable, or actually he's got a satellite dish, and Pizza Hut. And he has delivery. He doesn't cook, never learned how to cook. And those are the two most important things in his life. So he never, like some other people, sit there and say, when I die, what is this talk about going to heaven? Or should I live a different kind of life? Or I have thoughts about, actually what creates life, people procreate, but what gives the spark of life to, make babies be born? So some people do have an intellectual curiosity, right? So that's why we go into this after the deeper questions about your place in the world. What questions, right? What I just talked about. What do the religions say about the possibility of an afterlife? And that means heaven or hell. If there is an afterlife, will the person live on a spiritual form or some other different bodily nature, right? Sometimes too, people, if they are not raised for a religion, don't believe anything, they might have an experience like they encounter what we would call a ghost. So once they believe that actually happened, this encounter with a ghost, they say, this is not the more normal world here. This is a spirit world. So that sparks their curiosity. Okay. So that's what we talk about, living in a spiritual form or some other different bodily nature. Continuing religion can hold our interest in the manner that history or a study of culture does. So some people really love culture, your backgrounds, where you're from. Some people also get into their own genealogy too. And religion holds people's interest on that level. But it is also practical since it offers the promise of bringing shape to our lives and laying out a path for living. So what that says is religions, no matter which one you choose, shapes your life with its rules and its conduct, and then gives you a path of how to live your life. And then, supposedly, if you lived your life correctly, the path with a good life is hopefully you'll go to heaven, right? Some of the ideas in religion are great and unblemished. Unblemished means they're not marked, they're not stained, okay? Even if people do not always live by them. So you maybe break the rules or don't live by them, but they themselves are not tarnished or stained by your inaction or, bad things that you've done, right? So you see how interesting all this stuff is and all we're talking about? Intellectual curiosity, folks. Okay. You don't have to embrace all religions, which means you don't have to accept or follow all religions, any one specifically. So you don't have to choose one either, or any combination of them in order to be curious about them. And that's very true. It's just like, some people are curious about, let's say, serial killers, right? And you want to find out information about these people and how is it possible they can do these evil things and the kind of life they lead. But that doesn't mean that you want to be a serial killer, right? You want to follow, you're just curious. And same thing with the religions. What is this stuff that makes people fast or pray or, and people have intellectual curiosity. So even without participating in a religion, there are inherently interesting metaphysical and moral tenets for each of them. So again, if you're a regular person and you read some biblical stories about people that had high morals or were tested by God and went through these trials and tribulations, as they say, and came out good, that's interesting reading for you, because again, even if you don't believe in any religion, people still feel pain or go through their own trials and tribulations, whether they be bad relationships or drug addiction or, an accident, you name it. So if you can read about other people that went through something similar, it might help you come out of these bad situations and have a positive effect on your life, even if you don't follow the religion. So you don't need to be a Hindu at the end of your life to find the notion or the thinking of spiritual liberation attractive. Then too, or also, you don't need to go to the extremes the Jains do. This is a religious group, the Jains. It's not just a bunch of women. Oh, they're named Jane, right? No. So that they do in their asceticism or go as far in practicing ahimsa or non-injury, which means never hurt not only other people, but insects. They're the kind of folks that they're going to walk and they go, oh, I'm going to step on that ant. And most people would just kill the ant and keep on going. And they're going to make an effort never to do that or hurt the butterfly or, even a fly. See, he says towards all living things. That's what I'm saying, all living things. It's just a lot harder than just saying, well, I won't hurt another human being, but every day, I kill 20 flies with the fly swatter. They won't do that. So towards all these living things, in order to respect the moral commitment, right? That takes a big moral commitment to say, not killing ants, flies, butterflies, cockroaches. That I've killed many a cockroach, so I don't think I could be a Jain. Likewise, you don't need to subscribe to each and every tenet of Lutheranism in order to understand, even feel Martin Luther's furious objections, which means very angry objections to the corrupt practices of the church in the early 16th century. And yes, the earliest 16th century, he's talking about the Catholic Church here, did a lot of bad things and illegal things. That's why they were corrupt. But in I'll let you know about myself here. In my experience, it's not really, in cases like that, it's not really the religion, I feel. It's the person. See, unfortunately, you just pick a religion and say, this is a really good religion, I'm going to follow it. But the problem really comes with the humans that are involved with it. And then once they develop a system of hierarchy or people who are higher than others, just like if you were in the army, that's when I see that there's problems, right? And growing up, I had friends in, most of the religions that, were popular in the United States at the time, Catholicism, Lutheranism, Mormonism, Jehovah's Witness, and the issues that I had eventually that would, as I would go to these meetings, is that eventually I had problems with people who said, I am a high level person and you must do what I tell you to do, or you must do that. So a lot of these corrupt things, no matter what religion, come from the actual, unfortunately, human contact. And I mean, humans are humans. I've seen it everywhere. Jobs, you name it. Some guy gets a supervisory position and basically he is just getting paid $1 more than you are. And then all of a sudden he thinks he's President Joe Biden, right? And he's going to tell you what to do. See, so the issue is not really with the company, but it's with a person and their egotism. You have to be careful with that in your life. So aside from historical and intellectual curiosity that religion can arouse or excite in us, who wouldn't find interest in the mystical explorations of the Carmelite nun, Saint Teresa of Avila, longing to make a personal contact with God? So here, you say, I don't believe in God. I'm not a religious person, but you follow the mystical explorations of this Saint Teresa, and it's just like reading an interesting novel or something. And you say, well, why is it that I don't have any feeling towards, belief in God? And this lady is sacrificing many aspects of her life to get to God. I'd like to read her story, and maybe you can learn from it, And here we go. And what of the peyotism of Native Americans who after taking the hallucinogenic, found that it aided and abetted their own spiritual experience of nature. Now that might be some complicated English there. So let me help you the best way I can there. Okay, Native Americans, or what you've seen popularized on TV, as what have been called American Indians, right? Peyote or peyote is a mind-changing or mind-altering drug, okay? And it comes from a plant. Some people get it in mushrooms, right? These special mushrooms. And I mean, California marijuana is okay. I don't think peyote is okay yet, right? So it's been illegal. But before the Europeans came, the Indians were already doing this. So they dry out like the plant, the mushroom, and then you can make it into a powder, roll it up and smoke it. And then, besides what people say, oh, the colors, right? It opens your mind to all kinds of things. So again, you can read about these stories, about the experiences that these people have, but you yourself don't have to take it. You're just learning, like I said, like this book, this class, right? And they said, hey, it aided and abetted, which means it basically helped a lot. Their spiritual experience of nature taught them to respect nature much more, okay? The aphoristic wisdom of Confucius comes from China, with his pith and counsels of humility and filial piety, rounds out our ethical understanding. Again, that's some even English gobbledygook for people who speak English, right? So basically what they're saying here is Confucius was a Chinese philosopher, not technically a religious man, right? But a philosopher. Yeah, it says aphoristic. So he spoke in aphorisms, which are like little sayings. Okay, so he always had a counsel of, and which means he's telling you, you should do this, you should not do that. And it was always based out of humility, which is, I think, really lacking in American society now. I think they tested middle school kids last year. They said, what is humility? And they had no idea. They've never heard this word before. And the humility is when you're just a very humble person and give credit to other people and don't sit there and say, it's me, 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 and I did this because of me, right? So these kinds of thoughts, and then the peyote, this rounds out our ethical understanding. And ethical means, you can have ethics without being a religious person. You just say, I don't think it's a good thing to steal, for example, or I don't think it's a good thing to say a lot of cuss words, the F word, the S word, and some people don't care, but you say, I can have these ethics and I don't have to be religious. So there you go. Finally, there are special passages in the book revealing the uncanny moral insight of Christ. I don't know if you've ever heard the word uncanny, but what that word means is it is something, it could be called a talent that a person has, but it is something that is like unbelievable that a person, let's say, does many, many times, right? Here, I can give you an example just to explain uncanny outside of you thinking about Christ, even though they're talking about his moral insight. So what they're saying is so many times what he has said has come true about people and moral insight. It's uncanny. But on a basic level, um, let's say you as a person, you have a good friend, and let's say you have a difficult life, and a lot of times negative things happen to you, and you become very sad. So let's talk about, this is a good friend of yours. So let's talk about the last 10 years. And you say, every time something bad happened to me, and I just went home and cried or felt sad, my friend called me each time. The friend has an uncanny ability to, call me, right? And let's say you were, in the last 10 years, you were sad. Let's just say even once a year, at different times. One year it was February, the other year it was June, the other year was September. And each year that person called up and said, I was thinking about you and I hope you're happy today. And you're like, how does this person know? Well, they seem to have an uncanny insight into your life, just as Christ had a moral insight into humanity. So perhaps the most revealing is the parable of the Good Samaritan, Luke 10:25 to 10:37. The context of the parable is a man asking Jesus, Teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life? Which means live forever. Jesus asks him, what is written in the law? So what is written in the Bible? The man replies, love the Lord, your God, with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind and love, and your neighbor as yourself. That's probably the hardest part. Maybe you can love God as much as you can, but loving your neighbor, what if you don't even like your neighbor? That's a tough one. Jesus acknowledged his correct answer and said, do this and you will live. The man wanted further clarification, which means I really don't understand the meaning of this. I know what I have to do, what you told me to do, but the meaning is why? And then who is my neighbor teacher? So interesting stuff. So again, you have no interest in becoming Christian, but you're like, okay, what does this mean? What are they trying to say here? I don't understand this. At this point, Jesus related the story of a man robbed, beaten, and left for dead. A priest passed by him without tending to him, which means without helping him. A Levite, which was a group of people at the time, ignored him too. But a Samaritan, which is a good citizen, saw him and took pity. He bandaged his wounds, took him into an inn, which is considered like a hotel, and paid the innkeeper to look after him, promising to reimburse him, the innkeeper that is, for any extra expense. Jesus asked, which of these three people, right, the Levite, who have a religion, and a Samaritan, which of these three do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers? The man said, the one who had mercy on him. Jesus instructed, go and do likewise. So it means go and have mercy on other people that are, the old word is downtrodden, or suffering, right? They're not in a good situation. So there you go. You learn something without having to adopt a religion. All right. What makes the parable especially brilliant on a moral level is that it broadens the moral requirement. It expresses a positive command. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. In short, it is not enough to simply not to do others harm. So it's not enough not to, well, I won't harm anybody, as the priest and Levite did. It is in the nature of love to do more, to better the condition, excuse me, of our neighbors. So basically, even if you don't really know your neighbors, if they need some kind of assistance, you can help them, right? All right. And that's what I hope with this book. The class is not to make you have a religion at the end of the class. It's just to teach you some things and see how you feel and if you learn something. Okay. All right. Okay, now we start. Now this is where the questions will be. Got to be careful on that stuff. Right? You don't want me to forget the questions. I mean, I know you probably don't want to do the questions, but things happen, right? Okay, here we go. Chapter 1. Religion through the years. It can be asserted with confidence, asserted means assertion or said, that no one knows exactly how many religions there are, although the best estimate, or could we say guesstimate, is about 4,200. One religion is certainly not superior to another. And the longing for religion, which means a deep feeling inside for a religion, seems built into human nature, which means people from all over the world feel that they need some kind of religion, that there is a God and they need to follow some type of scripture. And it's built into your human nature. It's, you can't take it away. The words of Voltaire, which was a French philosopher, 1694 to 1778, still ring true. If God did not exist, it would be necessary to invent him. Okay. So there you go. That goes along with the statement of humans long or have a deep wanting for religion, and it somehow is in your human nature, just like, men are attracted to women and women are attracted to men. No one taught them how to have this. It's just in the nature. Okay, so now we get into defining religion. The word religion derives from the Latin religio, okay, meaning to be bound or to tie fast, which means you're tied with a rope. Believers are bound to their faith. See, so it's a metaphor. You're tied with ropes to your religion. You can say with a reasonable degree of assurance that a religion comprises. Comprises means makes up. Compromises is a whole different meaning, all different words. So comprises a set of beliefs, values, and practices based on the teachings of a spiritual leader or a God. Through defining the term isn't always simple. Okay. So we're there. So like I said, got to get the questions out of the way. Okay, let me get that pencil. Question 1. Should I give you easy peasy lemon squeezy questions? Oops. Let me see if I can stretch this. Onesie, let's go. One more. Oh, one more. There we go. So question 1, the best estimation of how many religions there are is. So if you find this English a little strange, it's basically saying, give me the number, right? Give me that guesstimation number. Was it 1? Was it 2? Was it 22? So I'll give you a minute on that. You doing okay there? That's not too hard, right? I don't think so. Okay, let me go for the eraser. Right? Where is that thing? Okay, repeating. The best estimation, right? Of how many religions there are is. So just give me the number. All right, that shouldn't be too tough to do there, right? Not at all. All right, let me erase that. Okay. And let's go back, new share. Back to the material. Right. All right, so we're right down to the bottom here. That isn't simple, so let me proceed. Continuing, Charles Dickens, who wrote Scrooge, wrote to the Reverend is like a pastor, Frederick Leighton in 1847 in answer to a query. Query is a British term for question regarding his religious beliefs. And Dickens said this: "Yes, I really do not know what orthodoxy may be. And orthodoxy is a very strict form of your religion. They have it in Catholicism and Judaism, or what it may be supposed to include. A point not exactly settled, I believe, as yet in the learned or unlearned world." And that means with religious people or people who do not know about religion. "I am not in a condition to say whether I deserve my lax reputation in that wise." Okay, so that's some old English kind of kooky stuff there. But it's basically saying he's skeptical on many things of religion. Okay, he needs more answers before, I guess he wants to get more involved, right? Some people will even go to the extreme. I've heard them. They'll say something like, well, if you can prove to me that God exists, then I'll take a religion, but otherwise, I'm not gonna, get involved. Interesting stuff. Okay, Dickens wasn't and isn't alone in his skeptical opinion. No single definition has been offered on the subject of the very sets of traditions, practices, ideas, and faiths that could constitute a religion. In addition, there is little agreement on the kinds of claims. So look at this. There is little agreement. People, have their own ways of thinking about things. It's very hard to get a Muslim to agree with a person that practiced Judaism, and many times the person that practiced Judaism does not agree with a Christian, even though Christianity originally came from Judaism. So in addition, there is a little agreement on the kinds of claims that religion makes, whether a supreme being even exists, which means a God, whether a soul exists. Some people believe that the soul does not exist, that you just, you're these energy particles, and when your body dies, that's it. So, and if so, is it immortal? So even if there is, there's people say, okay, maybe there is a soul, but is it immortal? Can it live forever? Or it just also dies like energy particles? One can raise skeptical questions about these matters until the cows come home. That's an old term. It means basically, they're trying to be funny. So they're saying people can raise all kinds of skeptical questions basically forever. There's no limit on that. There has already been unanimity, which means a unanimous agreement about the nature of subject amongst scholars, which is learned people, partly because believers see different things in religions and because the subject itself. So, all right. I don't want to jump into, I'll go a little bit further, but I'll have a couple of questions here. Okay. Yes, just a little bit here. Okay. Has been involved in the controversy throughout its history. So here's an e-fact. We used to have a book with some e-facts. Those are good stuff. They help us along the road. The concise Oxford Dictionary defines religion as the belief in a superhuman controlling power, God, especially in a personal God or gods. Some old religions believed in a few gods, the Greeks, the Romans, and they're entitled to obedience, yours, and worship. And this is a broad, which means wide and loose definition, encompassing many beliefs and traditions, right? Like, see, this makes me remember, you'll get some American folks that, let's say they have not studied Islam, they're interested in it, they see some things they like in it, and then people will say, Islam is a religion of love, right? And then you'll talk to a person that is actually a Muslim, and a Muslim will say, well, these American people have gone a little crazy again. The basis of Islam is not that it's a religion of love. It is a religion of obedience to Muhammad, to Allah. So, and as you see it here, with a superhuman controlling power, gods are entitled to obedience, right? And that's basically the number one tenet that's showcased in Islam, right? And even in Christianity, you're supposed to, but people don't like to say, well, I got to do what God says. And a lot of people that I've met that don't, they just told me, I said, well, why wouldn't you want a religion? It might give up a good path to your life. It might bring you with loving, like-minded people. And they say, I don't want to feel guilty. I don't want to have to feel I got to do something for anybody. So that's a big thing in their religion. Okay. So now I got a couple of questions here from the pack to here to up front. With that whiteboard, get that pencil. Question 2. Again, keep it easy peasy. Okay, I can easily stretch this one. See, we're going back to where I made that little pronunciation mistake. I was saying compromise, no, comprise. So now this should be an easy answer. See, you take advantage of my mispronunciation because I had to explain it. What does religion comprise? So what is religion made up of? So you have to give me the list there that we read. That should be fresh in your mind. And again, I say this every quarter. For the new students I get that never had me before, this is a good practice. Let's say for your midterm. First, in that, everybody's different. So let's say one student looks at the list and then they say, well, they give me 1, right? Another student gives me 2. And let's say the list is completely 5, right? So what I'm trying to say is on the test, whether it's the midterm or the final, the more you give me on that list, the more points you'll get. So the person who gives me 3 versus the person who gives me 1, you're going to get more points. Okay. And the person that gives me 4 or 5, wow. Okay. They're going to get everything on that. All right. So here's another question. Question 3. So I'm going to, not 33. So I'm going to ask this one in reverse just to make sure that I push the point across for you. Okay, I don't think I can stretch this one out too much. Probably better as a twosie. I'll leave it like that. Okay. So which question that we have here in this little small section of reading may come down to a choice of definitions, right? So the answer, in other words, which question has an answer where you have a choice of definitions? Okay. So let me give you a few to answer that. Take your time. You doing okay? I hope so. Okay, let me go for that eraser. Okay, repeating. What does religion compromise? Give me the list. What is it made up of? Religion, any religion. They all have the same list. That's what makes them a religion. Okay, 3. Which questions may come down to a choice of definitions? So which question will be answered by giving me a choice of definitions? Okay, that's the ticket right there. Right? Right. All right, so that one's erased. Let me go back to the material. Right. All right, so we're going to continue with atheism and theism. And are they religions? Atheism and theism, are they religions? What constitutes, so there we go with constitute again. A religion is a contentious matter. The question may come down to a choice of definitions. Oh, we might get more answers here for that last question. If your definition of religion involves a belief in a supreme and or afterlife, the non-belief cannot be religion. But someone else might embrace or hold or believe a different definition of the word religion, which derives from the etymological definitions and references the Latin religio. There's that religio again. Again, meaning to be bound or tied, which you're tied, glued to your religion and its beliefs. In this sense of the word, non-belief can be every bit as avid or strong as belief. So this is giving support to people who don't believe in religion. Atheism is the view that there is no divine beings. I'm an atheist, so I don't believe in God. There is no God. This statement is the bone of contention between believers and non-believers. So we're not talking about, a bone that you give your dog to chew on. It's a metaphor. It just means that this statement is the most critical problem point between believers and non-believers, right? It's what separates the two of them. However, it is not just the existence or non-existence of God that is disputed, right, or argued. For both sides of the issue, know that the existence of God implies the existence of divine providence and the possibility of divine intervention in the world. So what it's saying is both sides believe, like let's say I'm an atheist, I don't believe in God, but if, we always get the same point, but if there is, I just don't know about it, right? Because I'm an atheist. If there is a God, then that means, and I understand, that there is the existence of divine providence, which means God can come into your life, intervene in your world, and protect you or give you good things. Now, if there isn't, then, hey, see, nothing happens, right? And then the possibility of divine intervention in the world. So God can even intervene in the problems of the world, not just yours, on a personal level. So again, you're a atheist, but you're saying, okay, I have an open mind. So if there is a God, then he probably created the world, and he can help people individually, and he can even, maybe stop a war or what have you in the world. But since I don't believe, I don't believe it. I just have an open mind. Okay. Theists embrace a belief in this kind of active God. So believers think there is an active God. That's why they say this happened. It was a miracle from God. Such a God is a loving being and even answers prayers. That's another thing. How can you explain prayer to people who don't believe in any God, right? Where people who believe in God really believe in prayer and say, I prayed and prayed and prayed, for 30 days and 30 nights, and my life changed. A miracle happened because I myself didn't do it. When opponents voice an objection to this view of God, they aren't necessarily doubting the existence of God, but are disputing the being's caring nature. Okay, so they're saying here, the author is saying, there's a high probability that the atheist, they're not doubting the existence of God when, people say there was a miracle or God intervened, but they're disputing that if there is a God, this person does not have a caring nature, right? Maybe they feel that the God just created people, but doesn't really love people or care or try to improve people's lives, right? So that's an interesting point, right? That's a further, not an allocation, but a further division where the person says, yeah, I'm an atheist. I have an open mind. There could be a God, but I don't think God has a caring, loving nature. I think he just is. Maybe he's even egotistical, right? Very interesting. You don't hear that point of view a lot. So this opposing view isn't atheism, strictly speaking, but anti-theism. So you're saying this view, if the person says, well, I will accept that there's a God, but I don't think God is kind, then that's not really atheism, because atheism says there is nothing, right? I mean, no God. So this is kind of like anti-theism. You're kind of like against religion, okay? Different stuff. Okay. Let me make sure I'm following the path here. Good job. Okay. A survey showed that 15% of Americans accept no religion. The decline in religions has occurred since the 1990s. Currently, only 76% of Americans are Christians, as compared with a previous 90%. So let's say when I was a kid, 90% of the people, religious people in this country, were Christians. The decline has been in mainline denominations, which means the higher forms of Christianity, the main ones, not the ones that are the offshoots like a Lutheranism. Atheism in this older sense is not just a negative answer to whether God exists. What is essential is a denial of the existence of a being who takes an interest in mankind. See, we're going back to the same thing. They're saying, okay, maybe there's a God, but we don't believe he takes an interest in people. He doesn't want to see people happy, and who intervenes in the world and is a positive force for mankind, at times changing the courses of events. So again, they don't believe in the miracles, or that, like I said earlier, God can stop a war or a disease, or, you name it, things that are difficult for people to do on their own. So it'd be kind of like now, like if somehow Fauci and these doctors eventually cannot find a way to stop this COVID, religious people will be praying for God to pass a miracle and stop it, right? If you're a non-religious person, you don't even think about those things. Anti-theist, so we're staying with that new definition, deny that the world runs according to a wise and provident design. That's another thing. Religious people think there's a design to the world and we have to live according to God. And anti-theists, there's none of that, man. It's just a random, life is just random and things happen. Nobody helps out. In addition, this older sense of an atheism rejects the possibility that prayer makes a difference. That's another thing. Since they don't understand prayer and have no need of prayer, they laugh at people who pray and say, that doesn't change anything. That doesn't do anything. Pray all you want, you know? COVID's going to kill more people. So there's a dividing line. Further, anti-theists don't have the same faith that theists have in the assurance that evildoers will receive punishment in a future state. So what they're saying there is these anti-theists don't believe in a hell. And religious people normally say, well, this person's doing all these bad things. Hopefully they'll be arrested and put in prison here, but some people that escape that, religious people will tell you, well, they'll receive their punishment in hell, you know, in the afterlife. But again, anti-theists say, you know, there's no heaven or hell. You do good things, you live a good life, you're not going to get rewarded. And people who do evil, nothing's going to happen to them after they die. So, you know, again, dividing lines. This traditional atheism or anti-theism then is less interested in the question of whether God exists. See how we've drifted away from the traditional, you know, atheism, which said God does not exist, to kind of accepting, but saying all this other mumbo jumbo, nothing happens. By contrast, it asserts that God's existence or non-existence is secondary. Anti-theists hold that there is no divine being whose existence would be relevant to a person's contact. So again, commit all the crimes you want, do all the bad things you want. If you want to waste your life doing endless good acts for other people, go ahead, because you will not be rewarded. And then the people who do all these bad crimes, nothing's going to happen. Either you die and then, you know, your spirit just disappears. So very interesting stuff. So now I've got done with that. Let me get on to the questions. You know, there's always more. And so, question 4. So I'm keeping these simple and basic. We're going to do good this quarter. What is the view of atheism? We'll separate it. I'll let you work on this alone first. What is the view of atheism? So what do they believe? Please let me know. Go ahead. I'm going to separate these two instead of doing 2 at a time. I'll do 1. Make your time. All right. And again, the longer your definition, the longer your explanation, the more points you will get on the midterm, right? If you just say something silly like, oh, an atheist doesn't eat sausage, I'm not going to really give you good points there, right? You just give me the most basic. All right, let me move on to question 5. Okay, stretchy poo hair. See what I can do. Onesie, great. Atheism also rejects the possibility of what? That should be pretty easy peasy. So let me know what that is. Don't get my funny guys. Oh, atheism also rejects the possibility of you can fly in a plane or, you know, Bigfoot exists. We're not talking about that kind of stuff at all. So take your time on 5. Go ahead. Show yourself. All right, you think you got those? Okay. Eraser. Repeating. What is this view of atheism? What is their view? What do they believe in? 5, atheism also rejects the possibility of what? No funny stuff here, guys. All right, let's go back to the material. Okay. All right, so we ended here. Anti-theists hold that there is no divine being or God whose existence would be relevant or important to a person's conduct. Like he's just kind of there. Maybe he watches you, but he won't do anything, good or bad, right? He won't intervene. Okay. Fundamentals of religion. Fundamentals are the basics. And it says religion, so that means all. In any study of religion, students will come across a word that seems to be used in everyday religion. Schism, right? Schism. The concise Oxford Dictionary defines schism as, okay, we ready? The division of a group into opposing sections or parties, the separation of a church into 2 churches, or the secession, which means somebody leaves, of a group owing to doctrinal disciplinary differences. So you see a lot of like Lutheranism. It's a main example here. They had a schism and developed their own belief with Martin Luther, who didn't believe in a lot of the strange practices or not important practices of the Catholic faith. So they still believed in the same God. They still believe in Christianity, and Lutherans are Christian. But they said, hey, the ceremonies, the costuming, all this kind of stuff, we don't believe in, and other facets. Okay, so that became a schism, or the separation of a church into 2 churches, or the secession of a group, which means a group goes away, owing to doctrinal disciplinary differences. People in a group will differ, not exactly spellbinding news, which means not exactly shocking. Spellbinding is an old word that's kind of disappearing. If they differ enough or don't agree enough, however, they will pick up, go off and start their own groups, okay? Creating different religions or variations of a religion. I guess that's why you have, like, what is it? The Sunni and the other Islamic group. So they still are Muslims, but they believe in different things, right? Just like we have these groups that broke away from Catholicism, Lutherans, Methodists, Reformists, things like that. Okay. Even in modern times, divisions arise or come up when debating religion versus politics. Yes, politics is very tough. Or religion versus science. That's a new one that's really rough. Even religious versus secular systems of government, which means government that has no founding or basis in religion or no ties with religion. Disagreement continues to foster or bring about religious belligerence, which means you're not acting correctly, you're acting wild, you're being belligerent throughout the world, often expressed through violence. We shouldn't hold our breath for common resolution to come about soon. Again, fancy talks is we shouldn't really have hope for everybody to agree and have the same resolution anytime soon. It's just human nature. It's not going to happen. What does seem certain is that many, though not all, right? We always got to say that, not all. Just like somebody might say, I'm Korean and every Korean likes kimchi. Well, I've met a couple of Korean people that don't like kimchi. So you multiply that by the millions of Korean people in the world. I mean, I even met a Japanese guy from Kyoto. He didn't like sushi. So be careful when you say all. It's not a true statement. What does seem certain is that many, though not all, people, regardless of caste, your position in the world, creed, your belief, or nationality, require and often seek out some kind of belief system to sustain or help support themselves in their daily lives, giving them hope and comfort. And that's what a religion will do. You know, you're having a rough life and you're just existing on your own. You know, then you get a religion and then it will give you a belief system and a roadmap, and it can give you hope and comfort, right? Hope and comfort. All right, so I have a quick question in that area. Just one. You can kind of again, hopefully it's in the same easy peasy vein, right? There we go. What is defined as a schism? So we just read this. Just give me the definition. Give me the meaning. Go ahead. Write it on down. Take your time. The longer, the better. All right. You think you got a hold of that? Do ya? All right. Let me grab the eraser. All right. Repeating. What is defined as a schism? Give me the definition and we'll be fine. All right. Back to the new share, back to the material. So we ended with giving them hope and comfort. So now we go to a Western interpretation, since we are a country in the West. This book provides an examination of the major religions of today, how they evolved and what they are about from a Western perspective. Muslims contend or believe that Islam is not a religion, it is a way of life. Have you heard that before? It's nice and new to hear. Similarly, Taoism is considered by many not to be by religion, but the way, as the Japanese people say, the Do. So Taoism comes from China, right? And again, it's a philosophy-based subject. Buddhism, which does not serve a god, believes in the path. Nevertheless, it would seem that whatever name or designation given to a particular faith or belief, the needs of the adherents, which means the people who follow it, do not differ, in that there is universal agreement. So in other words, all the Buddhists believe in the same way or path. And the Taoists believe in the same way. Okay, here we go with a E fact. In the religious calendar, the years prior to Jesus' birth were counted down from 1 year and designated before Christ, abbreviated BC, which you see in all the writings. The years following his birth were designated AD, Anno Domini, the year of our Lord. However, as non-Christian countries adopted the Gregorian calendar, the years were changed to Common Era, abbreviated CE, and before Common Era, abbreviated BCE. So minor stuff, don't have to worry about it. It will not be on your midterm, so don't sweat it. All right, continuing. For those readers stimulated by this book, by reading this book and seeking more information, I suggest consulting books that specialize in the religion you are interested in. So after you take this class, if you're really, really interested in the Jewish faith, then get books on that subject. If you're interested in Hinduism, get books on Hinduism. It is not the intention of this book to provide extensive scholarly data, but to provide accurate information to inform and whet the appetite of an inquiring mind. So again, like let's say, if I were to start talking about Buddhism right now, I'm not supposed to sit here because we don't have the time or the week, I mean, hour-wise or weeks-wise, to go on an extensive explanation of Buddhism. I'm just to give you the basic tenets and whet your appetite if you have an inquiring mind. So just get you a little interested, and then it's up to you. At that point, you might want to take some of the other classes here, which we have our Buddhist monks and people with PhDs, and they will really give you the extensive study that you're looking for. Okay, and there is an extensive list of recommended readings in Appendix B. In this book, the 5 major religions and their major offshoots, as Jainism, there's Jainism again, which is an offshoot of Hinduism, are in chronological order. Therefore, the book takes up the less well-known religions, also chronologically, beginning with Confucianism. Okay. We've gone to that, and let's let me see here. All right, or should I read more? Okay, I'll jump it together. Okay. Most scholars agree that the 19th century was the formative period for the study of modern religions. Now that you might have to remember. When was it? Oh, it was 2 weeks ago, buddy. It was 1999. Okay, that's what you think. Many disciplines were involved, including the philological sciences, literary criticism, psychology, anthropology, and sociology. Naturally, scholars brought their own academic biases into play. So when you have a bias, you have your own belief. Their task was formidable because so many aspects of religion had to be evaluated. History, origins, development, philosophy, to name just a few. It comes as no surprise to learn that the unanimity, which means all agreeing, among them was rare, as it's always been with human beings. The very nature of the subject was loaded with problems. Different scholars had differing views, even about the nature of their subjects, be it Christian, Muslim, or Jewish. The subject is, after all, vast, which means wide, long, deep, and must include not only getting the information together, but interpreting it to understand its meaning. Questions immediately rise that go beyond the recorded facts. What, for example, is a religious experience, and how is it exhibited? Right? Some people have a religious experience, and some people do not. What are the principles at work in the various religions? Do these religions have laws? And if so, how do they affect the adherents or the followers? In addition, there were questions of truth or falsity and the reliability of the recorded history of each religion. In short, it would be fair to say that the whole subject was fraught with controversy, which means it had a lot of controversy. The analytic period of philosophy ushered in or brought in skepticism about the claims made by religions, and religions make many claims. And these claims could be about the afterlife, the nature of mystical and religious experiences, even the perennial problem of evil, which pushes the believer to square God's nature as a perfect being with the fact of natural and moral evils in the world. And that's another thing people, it's interesting. Some people might say, okay, maybe there's evil, but they have a harder time accepting that God's nature is perfect, right? That's something they just don't want to believe or can't believe. Something is very strange there, right? So we've come to the end there, right? So it's on to those questions I wanted to ask earlier, okay? So let me hit those. That will be 7 and 8. Pencil, question 7. Okay, it's a long question. So usually, like I tell my students, the longer my question, the shorter your answer. Let me see about the stretching here. Tuesday. Okay. Which disciplines were involved in the formative period for the study of modern religions? Okay, so it's a list of disciplines. So just write them down for me. Again, the more you write, the more points you get. Make that list. All right, you getting that together? Okay, let me put question 8 up there. Oops. All right, stretching again. Tuesday, okay. In the analytical period of philosophy, it was skeptical about which claims of religions. And remember, religion has many claims. So that's another list. Okay. Go ahead. All right, you think you're getting a hold of that? I hope so. Okay, let me go for the eraser. Question 7, which disciplines were involved in the formative period for the study of modern religions? 8, in the analytical period of philosophy, it was skeptical about which claims of religions. Right. And share back to the material. Now we're going to get into classifying religions. The whole issue of true and false religions, and through time, they've always said things like that. It's against each other. You know, your religion is not true. Your religion is false. My religion is true. So that's how the situation is set up. The whole issue of true and false religions. Any classification that demonstrated the claims of each led to the necessity of defending one religion against the other. They do have to do that. Unfortunately, this type of classification, which is arbitrary, which means it depends on the person or the group, and subjective, it's also their subjective feeling or understanding, continues to exist. For example, in the 16th century, Martin Luther, the great Protestant reformer, went so far as to label Muslims, Jews, and Roman Catholics, Christians, as false, right? That's how he classified them. He held that the gospel of Christianity, understood from the viewpoint of justification by grace through faith, was the true standard in his belief. Another example would be Islam, which classifies religions into 3 groups: the wholly true, the partially true, and the wholly false. That's very interesting. I didn't know that. So, like, you're partially true, you're wholly false, you're just a little. Wow. So you learn something new every day. These classifications are based on the teachings of the Quran, the Islamic sacred scripture or Bible, and are an integral or important part of Islamic teaching. There's also legal implications for the Muslim treatment of followers of other religions. And this is in Islamic countries, since we have a separation here of church and state, but in Islamic countries, the actual religion is the final word in the say of the law. They don't separate the two. Since Luther's time, this is an E quote, there has been a conviction more or less rooted or begin that a man may be intellectually processed, think out a religion for himself, and that as the highest of all duties, he ought to do so. Interesting. This is from Walter Bagehot, 1826 to 1877, Physics and Politics, or Thoughts Out on the Application of the Principles of Natural Science and Inheritance. So this is a person saying that, hey, you as an intellectual person, and you might be very smart, you can create your own religion for yourself. And that's a duty you should do. So typically from a secular or non-religious man, there's nothing here about faith or divine intervention. It's just saying, hey, if you're really smart, you can make your own religion. And it's the same thing. Of course, such classifications express an implied judgment, not only on Protestants, Jews, Roman Catholics, where's my arrow, and Muslims, but on all religions. This judgmental nature arises from the loyalties that exist in every society and religious culture. It is human nature for people to defend their own tribe, and that is true. And by association, decry or go against other tribes, say things against them. The field of psychology maintains that in the religious person, emotions such as wonder, awe, and reverence are exhibited, okay? Wonder is when you see something and you say, wow, that's such a good feeling. It's wonderful. And awe is something a lot of times people will say, like, your mouth just opens. You can't even control it and you won't say something. So a lot of my students have gone to the Grand Canyon and they feel awe, right? Because they say nature created this. And how did it create this over millions of years? How's possible? So that's a feeling of awe. And reverence is when you have a high respect for someone or something are exhibited. This is in religious people. Religious people tend to show concern for values, moral and aesthetic, and to seek out actions that exhibit these values. Again, if you're not religious, some people say, I do what the hell I want. And I don't care if it's moral or not. If it makes me feel good, it makes me feel good, right? Which is different than how religious people look at things. It will likely characterize behavior not only as good or evil, but also as holy or unholy. And people are virtuous or non-virtuous, even godly or ungodly. So here's the final essential here. The Greek philosopher Plato, 428 to 348 BCE, saw that in performing every good act, humans realize their link with eternity and the idea of goodness. He likened the human condition to the image of a man in a cave, chained by his earthly existence so he cannot see the light outside, only the shadows on the wall. In order to see the light, man has to throw off his chains and leave the cave. Very, very metaphorically speaking here. It is well known that in the times of trouble, whether personal, national, or international, the number of people who embrace a religion increases. It could therefore be said that since trouble isn't going to go away, neither is religion. Both are here to stay. So I can tell you something that kind of explain this on a basic level because it says in times of trouble. So we can substitute war or famine, or if the COVID disease gets worse. People on a personal, national, which means a country, or international, they start looking for religion because they realize that man cannot control what's going on, right? So they look for religion. So it's just like I learned from someone I knew that was in the Army, and when guys classify training to do parachute jumping, they want to be a soldier, higher level soldier, let's say a ranger or the AA department or Screaming Eagles, they have to do a number of jumps out of an airplane. And, this sergeant told me that he could have, let's say all the recruits none of them believe in God. They're like, hey, I'm a young guy and I'm wild and I don't believe in God. He says, but if they're afraid, he says, 90% of the guys, when they jump out of the plane for the first time and they're scared, they say, help me, God, Jesus Christ, right? Interesting, huh? Do you want to know what the other 10% say? Mama. So again, things that we're born with, unbelievable. So I finished the reading. So at this point, I have to do the last two questions. Okay. Go to the new share, whiteboard, pencil. And I go to question 9. Here we're going to go back to the short questions. Yeah, Shorty McForty. And I can make this a onesie. The classifications of religions is what? What is the thinking behind how this is made, right? Okay, this you have to think a certain way, and then that's why you start classifying religions. Okay, so go at that. Okay, I think you got that. We're gonna move on to 10. Stretch this. Religious people tend to show concern for what? So I don't want my silly guys. They tend to show concern for eating out at restaurants more, or cooking more, or saying hello. No, they're looking for certain things that secular people do not look for. So go ahead, answer that. Okay, I think you got that. All right, eraser time. 9, the classifications of religions is what? So what is the thinking behind this? 10, religious people tend to show concern for what? Again, they tend to show concern for things that non-religious people do not. So please list those. All right. Back to the new share. We've done all that. So if I Again, we finished the material, so I'll just go to the stop share. There we are. How you doing? So that's it for this week. Again, this is scheduled for, as I look at my trusty calendar, October the 4th. That's our first lesson. Okay. So please take care and get ready for the fall, right? All the holidays are coming, the Halloween, the Thanksgiving, and the Christmas. Okay. So see you then. Bye-bye.